going to look at another machine that does routing. That means it has a selection of bits that you can put in it, which have different shapes or contours. So the more bits you have, the fancier your furniture could become, or the wider your scope is of making something nice. Now I've just changed a bit here that gives me a curve along the edge, and I'm going to replace it with a straight cutter. So I'll put that into the chuck, very similar to a drill. So do that. Turn her over. Now I've got spanners which releases the chuck, and then I can insert the finished job. Open her up a bit more. There we go. Now the machine has a lock device, which you might be able to see there. I push that down and it locks the chuck into position, and then I can tighten that up. Not too tight again, otherwise you'll have problems getting it out. And then what I have here is called a plunge router. Now that way it does nothing. I can turn it on and it won't do anything, it'll just spin. So I'll just plug it in. Alright. The bit is spinning, but it's obviously above the surface of what I want to do. Now what I'll do now, I'll get rid of this melanoma that I called it some time ago, and actually route that out, so I can put an implant in there of a similar piece of material that matches the grain. So if you've got a nice long piece of wood or a piece of furniture or something and it's got one little defect in there, you can get rid of that defect rather than having to replace the whole piece. So I'll just show you how the plunge works. Right, so again, get a grip of the machine. That's why it's got two handles. It's got a trigger set up here. Press the release button. Right. And then I will just plunge it in to show you rather than having to get the exact depth. So when you're doing this, make sure you've got a fence along your job. This actually comes with a fence, which I didn't bring unfortunately. So I've just improvised by putting a bit of plywood against it, but it does the same job. So I'm going to route this section out because it is faulty. So I'll just go in slowly by plunging it in. Noticed I let it stop in the actual cut, so when I pull it out it doesn't damage the rest of the area. So you can see that I've taken the majority of the fault out, and I will then adjust my fence left and right so I can get the majority of it all out, and then I'll find a piece of timber very close to this in the grain configuration. This is a piece of radiata, comes from New Zealand, and I'll look for a piece that has a very similar grain, and I will glue that in, and then later sand it over and put it somewhere where it's not in your face obvious. So if it's a rail for a sideboard or something, I will put that at the end that is not so obvious. But that's what you can do with a plunge router. Right, you can lock it in and keep it at a certain height, and then you can use this curved bit. Right, it gives me a 1/2 inch curve or a 13mm curve. Right, so when I change that bit again, First of all, unplug. You don't have the tool live when you're changing bits or blades. So I will put that into my collection, and then the plunge router, it can be put aside if I don't need it anymore, and I'll show you a baby version. This one here, same situation, same chuck size. Any one of these will fit this, and in there I've got a 1/4 inch round or a 6mm round. So I've had this machine over 30 years, and I've used it to build my own furniture and put fancy corners and edges around it, just by using the selection and the one machine. So it doesn't plunge. You've got to set it at a certain depth so you get the curvature right. So I'll just give you a demo on that. Right, so we've got an edge here. Now when you're routing, you always push the machine in and go in the direction it's cutting. You don't pull it back because it'll wander off and could fall out of your hand and then hurt yourself. So just start her up. And then we have a nice pencil round, which is easier to sand and finish off. And again, when you're painting it or staining it with a brush, your bristles don't get caught in the grain. So this little mate of mine here, it's been very faithful over the years, and it should outlast me if I look after it. Again, respect your tools.